Hey everyone, this is your Body Code Practitioner, Emmanuel, out here in Layton, Utah. Today I wanted to talk about the inner child. And so this is a very important subject because a lot of people are kind of unaware of the fact that we have this separate, almost continent or separate state that's been disconnected from the original adult self. Like we have this adult self, but there's this separate state that's involved. And so I have from a very amazing woman who's a practitioner who's worked with me before. We have a ton of notes here. Lots of notes and she was so nice. She said, hey, let me share with you my notes on how you can work on the inner child. And so I want you guys to go on a journey with me on what's the most effective way to work with the inner child, what could really benefit you and your clients. There's a couple of recommendations that I have for people who look into the inner child subject. And number one is you don't want to kind of jump into it just because it's like a spark in the night or like a flicker in the night and say, oh, I gotta work on inner child. That's what's holding me back. Don't turn into the hypochondriac self and say that's the reason why things haven't been working for me. Because if you notice, you just gotta make sure you have a log. Number one, it's always important to have a journal, something that you're writing down. How am I improving? In fact, when I work with people who have depression or anxiety or whatever, I try to always say, what's your number? 10 being really bad, 1 being really good, average this week. And every night I want you to log in D equals A for anxiety, D equals for depression imbalances. Where are you at right now? And they go today I was a 6, today I was a 2, and then just average it out. And hopefully we're seeing the numbers go lower and lower on average. So it's kind of the same thing, is that if you're working with a practitioner, make sure that you're taking numbers down, you're writing notes, you're making little brief coincidences that you see. And you'll notice if you look back, there's been a ton of improvement here. Maybe there's more body code sessions I have to do. Typically, people who do inner child work, who need it, is due to the fact that there's no movement. Number one is there's absolutely no movement in regards to, your positive symptoms. They don't show up. So after many consistent body code sessions, nothing's happening. There could be an inner child issue. Number two is there could also be, if the symptoms actually get worse, and that's is it possible that things get worse due to emotion code body code sessions? The answer is yes. It's very rare, but if it does happen, it's probably for the fact that there's an inner child issue. Those are kind of some examples. I'm going to mention some tips today on and I'm going to show you kind of where it starts, how to work with the inner child, what are some facts about the inner child, what are the signs of an unhappy inner child, how to approach the inner child. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about in the podcast. If you have Apple Podcasts, I would love it if you just listen to it there, and you can leave a review. If you've gained some insight from my podcast before, you can leave a little review there. I'd appreciate that. There's already a lot of people that have left one there, but go ahead and listen to it there, or Spotify. But if you have Apple, I would just do Apple Podcast. And I left the whole thing 20 minutes of just kind of an overview of the inner child, just an overview. What is it? Where did it come from? What should we expect from it? Just all these different things, but it's not really how to do a body code session with the inner child. I left that for the second podcast, which I will be doing tomorrow. So if you've subscribed to any of my podcasts, wherever you can listen to it, you'll hear it tomorrow about how to actually work with one. But for those of you who are brand new or have been around, sometimes it's good to see what are people saying about what it is, where it came from, what are the positive symptoms that come from it, just kind of an overview of it. And then we get to the meat and potatoes and be okay, this is how we work with it. And so hopefully you enjoy it. I'm going to leave the link either above or the link below of the podcast that I did today. And tomorrow I'll post the second part of it. So it'd be great to have everyone join in the journey. Hopefully you guys appreciate the information. And I'm going to interview the special lady. She actually accepted earlier today that she wants to do the interview with me. So maybe Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not really sure what time she's available, but I think she has amazing experience on the inner child work, and she can give us all insight. And I'm going to, if you have any questions at all, I might post something hey, do you have any questions about inner child? And we're just going to jot them all down, and then maybe I can send it to her before we do the interview. So with that, hope you guys appreciate this. Again, I'm going to post a link up above of the podcast I recorded today to give you an overview of the inner child, to see what it is and how the body code can benefit from it. Because the reality is that, we have a ton of volumes of information out there of like how to talk to your inner child or how to affirm something to your inner child. But in regards to healing, like to actually remove energies from this separate consciousness inside of you, or like a split consciousness of you, that's a whole nother level of healing. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to talk about in the podcast. So with that, hope you guys appreciate the podcast that I'm putting up there. And feel free to send me a message on Anchor, or you can leave a review on Apple Podcast. I'm always here to respond to you and see how I can help you out. And we're all here to learn from each other, right? So again, everyone have a great day, and I look forward to getting your feedback on this podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.